Armel Supervi with a presentation with a title, Musical Use of Natural Sounds, Perspectives from the Second Part of the 20th Century.
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you, but I don't see your screen. So Sebastian has to switch off his sharing.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So then
you have to share the screen.
Yeah.
I did. I did, Johnny.
Sound. Okay. Do you see my?
Perfect. You can go on.
Okay, so hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be part of this this moment. I'm a master student in environmental anthropology in the National Museum of Natural History of Paris. And today I will present a bibliographic review realized 2 years ago. And it was supervised by Jérôme Sueur, that you already know, researcher in ecoacoustics, and Vincent Battesti, a researcher in ethnoecology. So basically, this study was realized through a social science perspective. I had to review a lot of literature of different disciplines, such as musicology, ethnomusicology, ecoacoustic, philosophy, anthropology. And in this study, I addressed the question, how does the musical use of nature sounds from the second half of the 20th century challenge the definition of musicality? So the first thing we have to do if we want to respond to this question is to define what is musicality. So by looking to different literature of musicology and ethnomusicology literature, I realized that there isn't a single definition of musicality. However, three main features remain quite persistent through different authors. The fact that musicality needs to be structured, it needs to be composed by human, and it needs to be abstract from the reality. Music, for some researcher, is the most abstract of all the arts. In this study, I considered nature sounds as the biophony plus the geophony minus the anthropophony. I only considered music displaying common acoustic features with the nature sound represented. I define this as acoustic iconicity. And finally, the historical framework is from the second part of the 20th century, because it's not a historical research. And I didn't decide to have a geographical range, because I wanted to have to be allowed to do some comparison among the different use of nature sounds in music in different cultures. This presentation will follow three parts. In the first part, we wonder, are nature sounds musical? In the second part, we will ask ourselves if music would rather be the result of a composition process from nature sounds. And finally, if musicality of nature sounds could be implied by a specific musical way of listening to the sound. So first, are nature sounds musical? So what is a sound? A sound is defined acoustically and physically with different features, which is duration, timbre, amplitude, and frequency. And the musical sound structures will mix these different features. So harmony in Occidental music is considered as a simultaneous production of different notes, the chord. Melody is a frequency variation through time, the different notes through time, and the rhythm is a repetitive sound structure. So all these different characteristics will allow, I'm sorry, I just need to put my battery on. So all those three characteristics define a musical structure. And we can ask ourselves, is this nature sound musical? So let's listen to this sound. So maybe we recognize the source of the sound. It is a sound emitted by a lot of frogs. It is known as explosive breeding. It is located in Amazonia, and the frogs are aggregating in a very short time in huge numbers. And if we wonder if this sound is musical, maybe we can say that there is a kind of rhythm, because there is an amplitude modulation, even if the sound is continuous. However, in terms of melody or harmony, it is really difficult to say that there is a musical melody. We can't distinguish any single note, and we can't distinguish very chords following the rules of tonal harmony. However, the Occidental definition of musicality had been challenged during the 20th century. Why? Because of the beginning of atonal music, deconstructing a lot of musical rules, because the different study of ethnomusicology that show that musicality is considered very differently among different cultures, and also by the beginning of sound recording that allowed some musicians to take notes and put them into music. Furthermore, ecoacoustic and bioacoustic had shown the evidence that some nature sound can display a specific structure. So if we follow this new way of considering musical structure, we may say that some nature sound, and maybe this sound of frog, display a musical structure. And this challenge the idea that musicality is only designed by human beings. However, we can also consider that it's only by a human process that you can transform nature sounds into music. So how is it possible? An artist can transform nature sounds into music by different techniques. First, we already talk about that. It can use sound recording, but it can also imitate the nature sounds by the body, by using different onomatopoeia, by singing, by whistling, but also by using acoustic or electronical instrument that will transform the original nature sounds. So this is an example of a vocal imitation of a nature sound in a musical context. It's taken from a book called Sound and Sentiment, written by Stephen Feld. And he describes the relationship between the Kaluli people living in the Papua New Guinea forest, and the relation to their environment through sound. So in a very specific context, a ceremony called the Gisalo, the Kaluli will mimic the sound of a dove that we will listen just now. And they will do this. So here we can see that by comparing the different qualitatively the sound emitted by the dove and the sound of the human mimicking the dove, we can see that the process of musicalization only selected some features of some acoustic features. Maybe we can hypothesize that the frequency modulation here is mimicked by the musician. However, the amplitude modulation doesn't look to be mimicked. So this way of transforming the sound will allow a transformation of the meaning of the nature sound. So the original nature sound, the sound of the dove, we don't really know the meaning of it for the dove. However, when the Kaluli listen to this dove, they will believe that it's an echo of an abandoned spirit. And the meaning will be changed and transformed again in the ceremonial and the musical context. So when the Kaluli people imitates the dove, it will add a new spiritual and emotional meaning because they will believe the singer becomes the bird. Also, since the beginning of the 20th century, nature sounds can be transformed into music by using nature sounds recording. So through different steps of editing and mixing, the original nature sounds can be little or transformed a lot. So I tried to class different music styles according to their level of nature sounds transformation. It's not exhaustive. And for example, we can describe the audio naturalism, where the sound is not transformed at all or a little bit, and it allows to reveal the own musicality of the nature sound. In the anecdotic music, initiated by Luc Ferrari, the sound is mixed a bit, and the idea is to tell a story through this nature sound. In the soundscape composition, that was also initiated by Murray Schaeffer, the idea is to make a relationship between the listener and the environment designed by the musical piece. However, in the concrete music initiated by Pierre Schaeffer, the sound is a nature sound is transformed a lot, so the listener can't really distinguish the sound source. So we may say that the more the nature sound is transformed in the musical process, the more it is separated from the reality, so the more it is abstract. And if we follow the definition we said before, maybe we can say that the more this sound is abstract from the reality, the more it is musical. So maybe concrete music would be more musical than audio naturalism. So, but does it make any difference in the way we listen to this different work? And is there a specific musical way to listen to a musical nature sound? So some researchers in musicology distinguished different types of listening. The associative listening allowed to listen to a sound through its source. So maybe when we listen to the frog, we identify the frog. While in the enchanted listening, the sound is perceived for itself, for its internal acoustical and musical features. So maybe we can wonder that the more we transform a sound, the more we listen musically a sound for itself, because we can't distinguish any source of the sounds. So the more musical it be. However, we can address another question. For example, when we listen to the frogs, we may have listened to the sound imagining that the source of the song were the frogs. But were we surrounded by frogs? No. So even if the sound wasn't transformed a lot by the process of sound recording, it generated an imaginary sonorous nature that transfigured time, space, and meaning. And this leads to an imaginary experience separated from the reality that leads to abstraction. So finally, we figured out that even according to the different level of nature sounds transformation, the sound produced allow a listening abstraction of the reality that doesn't challenge the initial definition of musicality. However, we can assimilate that nature sound used in music has its own musical structure only if we challenge the ancient Occidental way to regard musical structure, and also the fact that a musical sound needs imperatively to be produced by humans. So maybe we can address the question that maybe can we go further by including human music into the definition of nature sounds. So thank you for listening and feel free to ask any question.
Thank you, Armel. Very intriguing presentation. So it's always fascinating to link natural sounds to music, to emotions, and also to human culture. And it's a complex connection because it is greatly influenced by our traditions, our culture, our religion. So when we talk about music, we always talk about something really complex and difficult to manage.
Yes.
So any question on this topic?
Johnny, there is a comment from Bernie Krause.
Okay. Armel, are you able to read or I read for you?
Maybe I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Armel. A wonderful presentation. Are not all recordings of natural soundscapes abstracts?
That's a very good question. Thank you. Do you? Maybe I have to ask the question: is it the recording itself, like the nude recording, without being transformed, or is it, or do you speak about the? Or do you think about the process, the last part of the recording when it is already transformed?
Well, what you've done is you've taken the information out of context and you've transformed it through the patterns that the microphones are able to pick up. And it's put into a different medium when you take it into a studio to transform it again into music. So it kind of raises the question, again, how we're using that information and that data.
Sure. This is totally the part of the problem we addressed in the presentation.
It's okay. We can think about it. We don't need an answer.
Yeah, okay. And there is another comment.
So the question of rules?
The question poses, why not music? This is the same problem. It's music or not music. It is a sound or it is noise. We have to discuss about this. For me, it is really difficult to distinguish because I like every sound, from the noise of an helicopter to the song of a bird. So,
yes, but Johnny,
symphony.
Johnny, when we did the Nonesuch Guide to Electronic Music in the 1960s, Paul Beaver, my late music partner, and I came up with a new definition of music because music had changed. And just music is simply control of sound.
Yes, this is a good definition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, there is space for talking for hours. We can't now. and I have to introduce the last speaker of the day.